Well, I think that one
You're fine.
is ready. Do you want some?
It's fine.
What'd you say?
Oh my goodness. You've made his day.
Have I made his day?
You've made his day. We're going to hear a peep out of him now.
After 6 years of loyal service, the man who once protected the youngest royal was quietly dismissed, but what happened next turned whispers into worldwide headlines. Prince Louis's bodyguard didn't just disappear, he spoke. For years, he was a silent figure behind the scenes, walking just a few steps behind Prince Louis. That was his job, and he did it well. But in early March, royal watchers noticed something strange. The familiar face was suddenly gone. No public statement, no explanation, just a quiet replacement. Soon after, speculation began to grow. Was it a personal choice or something more serious? Then, reports emerged that the bodyguard had allegedly been let go, not due to performance issues, but because of growing internal concerns over what he knew. People close to the palace claimed he'd been too talkative about royal routines and behind-the-scenes details. And what made it worse was considering speaking out, not in a book or some dramatic interview, but through private briefings, discreet conversations that still made their way into the hands of the select press. Those leaks painted a very different picture of life inside the palace, especially around the youngest members of the royal family. Suddenly, it wasn't just about a guard being let go, it was about who he had access to, what he saw, and what he might have already said.
I can jump down from here.
Callum Bennett wasn't a household name. Most people outside of the palace wouldn't have recognized him in a crowd, and yet for 6 critical years, he played one of the most important roles behind the scenes of the royal family. As Prince Louis's personal protection officer, he was known for his quiet strength, laser focus, and his ability to blend in while always staying alert. Before entering royal service, Callum had already built a career defined by discipline and dedication. He was a former Royal Marines commando with over a decade of experience serving in some of the most high-pressure environments imaginable. His 11-year military career was decorated, marked by missions that required intense precision and emotional control. When he transitioned into private security, he carried that same level of seriousness into every assignment. In 2018, when Prince Louis was just 2 years old, Callum was selected for the highly sensitive task of being part of his close protection detail. At first, it was a standard rotation, but unlike many officers who passed through royal protection roles in short stints, Callum stayed. He wasn't just good at his job, he became trusted. His calm demeanor and ability to read people made him the perfect fit for a high-profile, emotionally sensitive post. He wasn't flashy. He didn't try to stand out. But quietly, over time, he became a constant presence in Prince Louis's young life. He learned the boy's habits, his moods, and even what would make him laugh or calm him down when the cameras became too much. While others came and went, Callum remained. And as Louis grew more confident at public events, many believed it was Callum's steady hand that helped shape that comfort. It wasn't just about protection. Callum was a grounding force, the kind of presence a young child doesn't always consciously notice, but one that makes them feel safe without needing to ask why. But while most bodyguards fade into the background, Callum became more than a shadow. He became a quiet guardian the family learned to rely on. Inside the palace, staff noticed the shift. There was something uniquely personal about the bond between Callum and the young prince. It wasn't unprofessional, it was natural. He was doing his job just extremely well. But emotional bonds, even if they form out of duty, make institutions like the royal household nervous. There were moments where Prince Louis would specifically look for Callum in a room, times where only Callum could help ease the tension when the little prince became overwhelmed during a public appearance. Even casual observers at royal events began to pick up on it. Photos showed Prince Louis visibly relaxing when Callum was nearby, often glancing toward him for reassurance. That wasn't in any manual, it wasn't something that could be taught. It was a relationship that grew out of time, trust, and shared experience. But in the world of royals, emotional connections are quietly monitored and sometimes quietly punished.
Is that no, please? Can I tell Hannah? I think so. Please, you think that?
The youngest is only 12, so it's really like keep away from the news. You're trying to steal all the sisters.
Over time, the internal tone began to shift. Quietly, new policies were introduced, recommendations aimed at limiting long-term assignments in close royal roles, especially around children. The reason given? To avoid emotional dependency or perceived favoritism. Behind closed doors, there was growing concern that a protector who becomes too emotionally involved may no longer be viewed as impartial. Callum didn't resist the changes loudly, but he did question them. Then came a turning point. During a royal appearance earlier this year, Callum reportedly acted against a direct stand-down instruction from a supervisor. It happened in seconds. A crowd shift, a moment of unpredictability, nothing extreme but enough to catch attention. Callum stepped in, shielding Prince Louis from a small but unexpected disruption. Onlookers saw it as good instincts, but higher-ups saw it as overstepping. That moment might have prevented something unthinkable, but in the eyes of command, it crossed a line.
He's kept the secret. This is what, 2 weeks he's now kept the challenge for 6-year-old. Yeah. And then this morning, he was like, "Why, please, but I tell her I'm busting because I used to drop off with the great boys and tell her." I think, so please, I think he has.
So here's the thing. When someone like Callum Bennett gets let go, you'd expect something, right? A press release, maybe a polite thank you in the papers. After all, the man spent 6 years guarding Prince Louis. 6 years. That's basically the entire life of the little prince, and yet nothing. No statement, no public recognition, not even a quiet mention in one of those royal newsletters. It was like he vanished. Just gone. And what made it weirder? Prince Louis noticed. Of course he did. Imagine being a kid and the one person who's been by your side through every handshake, wave, and royal wave along is suddenly just missing. According to Palace Whispers, Louis even asked where Callum had gone. And what did Kate say? Something soft, something vague, just enough to move on. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, maybe they didn't want to make a fuss. Sure, but think about this. Even staff who leave after 2 years often get some low-key shout-out or recognition behind closed doors. Callum? Nothing. Just packed up and headed out of London. Ended up in Dorset. And that silence? That tells a story in itself. But Callum didn't go quietly, because what he saw, what he knew, wouldn't stay buried for long. People close to him said he wasn't sleeping right. He'd keep a routine like he was still on duty. Early morning runs, checking windows, staying alert. He couldn't just turn it off. And emotionally, he was stuck in this weird in-between. He couldn't go back, but he couldn't move forward either. And then something shifted. He meets this kid, Jamie. One day, Callum sees him getting into it with someone, and rather than walking away, he steps in. That moment sparks something, reminds him why he did what he did. Next thing you know, Callum's volunteering at a local youth center. No titles, no uniform, just showing up, being consistent. And the kids, they respond, especially Jaime. There's something about how Callum listens, how he doesn't judge. It's quiet, but powerful. And if you're wondering if this part's real, yes, locals actually noticed the shift. The youth center even mentioned an anonymous donor helping with new programs around the same time. In a town that didn't know his name, Callum found something he hadn't felt since Louis, a reason to show up. But here's where things get really interesting. Out of the blue, these anonymous posts start popping up on these niche parenting and security forums. No names, no gossip, but if you read between the lines, it was obvious. The guy knew the internal policies, he understood the protocols, and more than anything, he cared. He wasn't just ranting, he was explaining how rigid systems sometimes hurt the very people they're supposed to protect. So here's where things got awkward, for the palace anyway. Once those anonymous posts started making the rounds, it didn't take long before royal staff started putting 2 and 2 together. And let's be honest, when someone from inside speaks up, even subtly, it hits differently, especially when it's not some disgruntled ex-employee airing dirty laundry, but someone respected, quiet, and clearly not out for fame. Behind the scenes, it rattled them. There were talks about whether there'd been a leak. Some folks were apparently pulled aside, asked vague questions like, "Have you seen anything unusual online?" They weren't exactly pointing fingers at Callum directly, but everyone kind of knew who they were referring to. There were murmurs about whether they should send a cease and desist, maybe make it clear this kind of commentary wasn't okay, but here's the issue, they couldn't prove anything. Callum never used names, never gave away sensitive details, just shared opinions. It was clever, too clever to punish without looking like the bad guys, and you know what? A lot of people were with him, especially parents. Now, here's the part that hits in the feels. Even after Callum disappeared from Palace life, Louis didn't forget him. According to someone close to the household, Louis asked about Cal more than once. That's not a small thing. For a kid growing up in such a tightly managed world, to keep asking about someone, that says a lot. That's the kind of bond that doesn't fade just because protocol changed. Meanwhile, Callum wasn't looking back, he was busy building something new. The youth center where he volunteered grew, more kids started showing up, more programs rolled out. He wasn't just keeping kids out of trouble, he was giving them purpose, helping them feel seen. And yeah, word got around, local media picked up on it, did a small feature, and just like that, Callum became a bit of a local legend. Totally unintentional, but well earned. He may have lost his job protecting one child, but in doing so, he found a way to protect many. And when you zoom out, it's kind of powerful, right? I mean, this wasn't some explosive scandal, no dramatic reveal, no reality show arc. Just a guy who quietly did the right thing, got pushed out for it, and then kept showing up for others anyway. Because loyalty doesn't always mean saying yes to everything. And systems, even the ones with castles and crowns, they don't always protect the people who need it most. What Callum did, that was courage, not the loud kind. The kind that shows up day after day even when no one's watching. So, real talk, was Callum out of line for pushing back, or was he just doing what any protector should do when something feels off? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I really want to hear what you think about this one. And if you're into stories that go deeper than the headline, hit that subscribe button. We've got more coming that you won't want to miss.